Hi there, I'm Coach Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in this video, we're going to be talking to you about I wasn't there for them when they needed me.
This can be a really devastating feeling, knowing that you didn't reach that potential in the relationship, knowing that you've disappointed a partner or weren't there in those moments of need.
Yeah, I hear this a lot of remorse, a lot of regret, a lot of wishing that they could go back and do those things different.
Yeah. And in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about attunement and what that means, emotional attunement. This is something that's very crucial in relationships. And this is when you're actively picking up on and empathizing with your partner's emotional experiences. So whether they're sad, whether they're happy, whether they're, confused, it's saying, okay, I'm sensing something. I see you. I want to connect with you with this emotion.
And this is such a critical thing in all relationships, not just romantic relationships, where we understand that we make bids to connect with each other and we have to be present with that. And if we neglect it too much, our partners feel more and more hurt and not cared about.
Right. And speaking about it being in all relationships, one that is most important is parent-child, where you see this attunement. A mother is attuned to their baby. A father is attuned to their baby. They're connecting with what their baby needs. And there's recent world news that's relevant to this because Denmark has recently removed endorsements for the crying it out theory with babies. So if you're not familiar with that, the crying it out method is allowing a baby to just kind of cry and get used to crying until they stop crying. And it's kind of as part of like sleep training. It's a sleep training method. And there's been a lot of research in the news that's come from Denmark. There were 700 psychologists who wrote letters to the government saying, hey, we can't be supporting this anymore, basically.
Wow.
Because of the research showing that impact of that emotional neglect on childhood development and on emotional development.
Yeah. I mean, 700 psychologists, it took that long before Denmark was like, you know what, let's look into this.
And I imagine that there's other countries that, still endorse that kind of strategy in terms of parenting. And I know some of the research there is, it's kind of hard to sort through. There's a lot of it out there now, and it can be hard research to do. But this is important. Emotional attunement. It's important for parent and children. It's important in any human emotional bond is to be able to say, hey, I see you. I'm connecting with you.
That's right. If you have kids or you plan on having kids, I highly recommend you do not let them cry it out, that you teach them to regulate their emotions. People say, that'll make them weak. Then they're going to be weak.
Yeah.
No, you got to make them strong. No, actually, the research shows the exact opposite. When you teach them to regulate themselves, their emotions, they become extremely confident and secure. And that is how you handle your life stressors when you become an adult. If you don't, you wind up with massive amounts of anxiety and depression, and you become avoidant. You don't trust people because people weren't there for you. Okay, if your parents aren't there for you when you grow up, you're going to think, I can't trust my partner. They're not going to be there for me. My parents weren't. So please, you have to focus on being emotionally attuned, being there for someone, including your romantic partner. So what does that mean? It means you're attentive to their needs, to their struggles, to their moods, to looking at them and really seeing who is this person and what are they going through? What are their experiences? It doesn't mean that you get sucked into everything, but you do want to acknowledge what they are going through.
And this is really important. A lot of you may feel, well, if I'm showing up for my partner, then I'm going to get depressed too, or I'm going to fall into that rut too. And that's not exactly what emotional attunement is. It isn't complete emotional mirroring. It's being able to say, okay, I'm sitting here in my independent self and I can see you. I can sit with you through that emotion. I can reassure you. I can support you. And if anything, I'll help bring you up, when those emotions are acknowledged. So that's all part of the process. This gets tricky though, and it's not always easy, especially if you have more of an avoidant attachment style. So if you have struggled in the past and you have that mindset of, well, I had it difficult, so why should you have it easy? I needed to figure out, my own emotions, and nobody was there for me. Nobody showed me how to do that. So your emotions are your responsibility. Mm-hmm. And you use that as an excuse to not be patient with someone, then that can lead to a lot of disconnection in a relationship. And This is where it can become difficult, because some people are very, very clever, and they can even use this kind of therapy speak.
Oh, yeah.
Of like, well, you got to figure out your emotions. That's not my responsibility. I'm setting a boundary with you. And trust me, I love boundaries. I love talking about boundaries, and I love talking about limit setting.
She was going wild, hog wild in the creative healing course. I'm like, rein it back.
Like boundary. It's true.
I had to cut her back.
It's true. You had to put a boundary on the boundary.
I had to boundary it.
It's true.
Hold on, Victoria.
So trust me, I'm all for boundaries. However, when we're talking about connection, we have to be willing to meet our partner where they're at. And it doesn't mean that we're going to agree with every emotion or any scenario that your partner comes up with, right? Because sometimes emotions, they aren't rational.
Was that a toy growing up, the emotionals?
The emotionals, no. Could be. Emotions aren't rational.
I got the anger.
I got the annoyed. And so
are they animals? I feel like they're animals wearing like armor.
The emotionals?
Yeah, they're like tough looking animals.
Maybe.
Mine's like a rhino.
Is it? Yeah. Like the horn?
I see him like as a rhino. Anger.
My point was 5 minutes ago that emotions, they aren't.
Who's annoyed? What kind of animal? Tiger?
Annoyed would probably be like, I don't know, maybe like a...
What's an animal that looks annoyed all the time?
I don't know. I'm trying to think. A koala, maybe. They're just the half eyes. They're over it. So my point 5 minutes ago was that emotions aren't always rational, and our emotions can hijack our brains, right? So there's that saying that sure, your emotions may be valid, but sometimes our thoughts around that emotion might not always be valid, right? And so long story short, we have to be there for our partner. Their emotions, no matter what it is, are important to us because we care about that person.
That's right.
If they're upset about something that we think is minor or small, and I fall into this a lot because of my boundary, but if they're upset about something that we find small or insignificant, it still matters to us because our partner matters to us.
That's right. And if this is something you struggled with, you've got to work on it. You've got to correct this before they come back.
Right. And you might not know how to respond. So if you are more avoidant, you might be in that situation where you're like, oh, I don't know what to say. And I've had clients tell me, man, in situations with others, maybe they're grieving, maybe they're just struggling, I don't say anything because I'm afraid if I open my mouth, I'm going to say the wrong thing and it's going to make it worse.
Yeah. This could be even something where somebody like makes a bid to connect with you and you think that you're giving an appropriate bid back, like at a similar level, but it's too neglectful. Like I had a client this week that she had dated this guy several years ago, and she was struggling with her mental health and some issues. She had a lot of trauma, but he reaches out a couple years later. She's so excited to hear from this guy. She can't believe it. It's like 2 years later. And we go through all the messages together, and she's coming across as like really dry. Like there's no questioning back. There's no like engagement to keep the flow going. And she didn't realize it at the time that she was coming across like she wasn't interested in hearing from him. And so I was like, okay, and we came up with a plan on what to do. But I was like, you got to work on this. No more texting. Texting is not your strong suit.
And it's hard because if you are more avoidantly attached, you might be dismissing others unknowingly. That's not your intention to brush other people off, but because of how you've operated your entire life, that's just kind of what you've gotten used to. You've learned to brush off your own emotions and just kind of tough it out. And so unconsciously, you kind of expect that of others around you. You don't know how necessarily to meet them there. So this does take self-reflection. And something that's simple to think about is, this is something I use with my children clients, but I show them the emotions color wheel. And this is something that you can Google. It's just a wheel with a bunch of words, emotional words. And just take a look at that at any given moment and say, okay, what emotion am I connecting with most right now? And it's a very simple tool, very simple activity that you can do, exercise that you can do for yourself to help get into that practice of what is going on within me right now? How can I acknowledge that?
Yep. And it's not just avoidants that get all the blame here, okay? I know avoidants are beating themselves up and feeling like they were neglectful, but anxious clients or people with anxiety, and avoidants do have a lot of anxiety too.
True.
They also struggle because when you're anxious, you don't know how to soothe it. You're desperately looking for other people to do it because you can't do it internally. So when you're going through this, you feel this need to bring up things with your partner that you're struggling with instead of hearing what they need help with, or you make it about yourself and can overshadow the other person's needs. Anxiety makes us selfish, and it's kind of like you feel like you're drowning and you're so overwhelmed with I'm drowning that you can't imagine. If you're drowning, you can't think about anybody else or what they need. You're like trying to survive. So you've got to learn how to handle that. So when you have to have these difficult conversations, or you have to give up maybe your needs being met in a moment for somebody else's, because that's going to happen in an adult relationship, it can be really hard to do that in real time.
Right. And it does take time to use that muscle of emotional attunement, right? To know what your partner is feeling and experiencing through different seasons. And I would encourage, especially if you're more on the avoidant side of things, is to ask. Of course, not that, what's wrong, what's going on? But just to check in, how are you feeling? How are things going? It's a muscle that can be practiced, and I would encourage you to practice it with your barista at the coffee shop, with the cashier, even just a simple statement of, man, this person seems elated and energized today behind the register, or man, this person seems like they're ready to clock out, they are tired, they are done. Maybe I ask when their shift is over, if they have much longer, or so trying to be more emotionally aware of what's happening around you. And we have an opportunity to do that every single time we interact with a human being. So just think about it in that sense. Be more aware.
Focus on learning to be more aware of other people's needs and struggles, learning to be patient, not so focused on what your needs are, and have compassion for yourself. Nobody's perfect. We're all going to have days where we're tired, or we're irritable, or we're grumpy, or we're stressed out. So you want to just focus on observing it and doing the best that you can, even on difficult days.
Right. And the irony of it is, if you're feeling a certain type of way for not having been there for your partner, explore that. Is it guilt that's coming up? Is it inadequacy? Is it sadness? So explore some of those emotions for yourself and think about, even in this very ironic moment, I feel sad because I wasn't there for someone else. How can we show up for ourselves?
All right. So hopefully this one's been helpful to you. If you'd like to get our help personally, you can do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Zoom calls. Coach Victoria is also available for Zoom calls.
I'm here whenever you'd like to chat.
Just click on her name at the top of the website. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.